Trees, trees, and more trees. Everybody has a problem painting trees, so I'm going to try to take some of the mystery out of it for you today. I'm Wilson Bickford. I'm a professional artist and instructor, and I've been doing classes for many years, so I know what people's tendencies are and what little pitfalls they happen to fall into when they're trying to render trees. Today's lesson is going to be deciduous trees or leaf trees. I'm going to use a 1-inch primer brush here made by Creative Mark, which is a really coarse, nice bristle brush that really lends nice texture to the canvas. It's ideal for what we're doing today. The main thing you want to be concerned with when doing trees is don't just get a round tree with a stick up the middle that looks like a lollipop. I've seen a lot of lollipop trees that students have put on their canvas in the past. That's what you want to try to avoid. So half the battle is getting a nice, interesting shape, believable shape, yet something that's airy that looks like the wind could blow through it. So I'm just going to do a quick little demo here. I'm going to take this 1-inch brush. I'm going to take green earth. I'm using Charvin paints today. This is green earth, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of burnt sienna. And notice how I'm tapping it onto the brush and getting quite an adequate amount of paint on the brush, and I'm leaving a texture right on my palette. That's the key. When you get something that looks like lace like that, you know you're doing it right. But yet the brush is not clumped together. If you look at the end of that brush, it's very open and not matted together, clogged up at all. That's the key. Now as I come up here, I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up. I'm going to switch over to a fan brush and take just a little dusting of this color just on the corner, just to show you what I'm seeing in my mind. I'm seeing a rough outline. I don't want to make this real hard outline because it's going to show through in the end. You have to visualize this. If you can see this in your head, you can put it on the canvas. But I just do a shape kind of like this just to get myself started as far as the general overall shape. And I'm not thinking anything specific right here as far as an oak or a maple or whatever it might be. It's just a generic leaf tree. If you're doing specific trees and you're doing a maple tree, you will want to go out on location, either take a photo or paint it on the spot. Every tree has its own characteristic shape. So you will have to conform to that if you want it to look like a specific species. This is just showing you how to do the random leaf texture. I'm going to tap this brush like this, very open. And if I come in and just lightly dab within this tree, this will be the darkest portion in the tree, and then I'm going to come back and put highlights in it. And notice how every time I dab, I've turned the brush at a different angle, and I'm just not putting a repetitive footprint of a certain brush stroke on there. Leave it loose and airy and let the wind whistle through it. You can always put more in it if it's too empty and too open. Don't clog it right up too full right off the bat, which is easy to do, but that's what you want to try to avoid. What we're doing is putting canopies of leaves on here so that you're going to see actual branches hanging out by the time we highlight this. So see how nice and open and airy that is, and it's starting to look like a tree, and it looks like a bird could fly through there and the wind could blow through it. That's the key. If it starts getting a little bit too repetitive in the shape, you can ad-lib and pull a few branches hanging out just so it's not symmetrical. You don't want it perfectly symmetrical. Like I said, don't get a round lollipop tree with a stick up the middle. And speaking of the stick up the middle, that's the next thing we're going to do. I'm going to take a liner brush. I've got a number 2 best liner here, script liner. And I've got some color here from a previous sample that I did, previous art lesson, which is just burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and some white. But any trunk color that you think is appropriate, any of the browns or grays. What I'm going to do, I've thinned this down a lot with my paint thinner, and I'm going to pull a trunk up through the middle of this tree. Once I get up into the leaf clusters, I kind of don't do it continuously. I hit and miss in a broken fashion. You're not going to see the whole trunk all the way up through the tree. It's going to be shrouded within some of these leaves, and that makes it look like it's buried in the middle like it should be. I can actually come back and put a few little limbs scattered here and there. Make sure your paint is really thin because you're gliding this on over a lot of that darker green. A lot of paint there, so you got to get your paint thinned down so it'll skate over the top of that. Now, as far as the highlighting, you'd probably want to put a highlight on the trunk. So I'll swish this out a little bit, and I'll take some of this color and add white to it, my base trunk color. And I'll say the light's coming from the right just for the sake of the example. I'll put a little bit of a highlight on the right side of the tree. You could also do this with a palette knife, depending on your style. Just put a little bit of sense of highlight there. I'm going to come back to this 1-inch brush, and I've got a paper towel laying right here. I'm just going to tap some of the excess paint off that brush. I want to go lighter and brighter, so I will take yellow and white into that color, maybe a little bit of the green earth as well. Notice the texture I'm getting on that palette. There's quite a bit of paint there, just like before, but I'm tapping the brush, making sure it doesn't mat together. I've got a loose bristle there I'll extract. Don't let the brush clump together. It should be very loose. And if you get enough paint on the brush, you don't have to use a heavy touch. You can just use a light touch just to sprinkle some of the highlights on here. And I kind of envision different branches hanging out in almost umbrella shapes. Don't make them all umbrella shapes, but I'm thinking of a leaf cluster and a canopy. It just has an arc to it. So you're going to have more highlight on the tops of those clusters and canopies, and I let it fade out at the base. I'm going to go just a little bit lighter on that just so you can really see it. So I'm going to take more yellow and white and really brighten this up, and it might be brighter than I would ever want it in reality, but just to make sure it translates to the canvas, or to the camera for you rather, just to make sure that you can see it, I'm going to go a little extra lighter and brighter right in here, just a little bit, and you'll see that now the light pushes the darker leaves back into the middle of the tree where they should be, and this has taken on form and shape and dimension, which is exactly what we're looking for, because we're just basically doing an optical illusion. Painting is nothing more than creating an illusion of 3 dimensions where you only have height and width. We have no depth on this flat canvas, so we're trying to fool the viewer into thinking that there's depth there. Now obviously if you're doing autumn trees, you would just base this in with maybe burnt sienna, put some lighter orange over the top, some yellows, and it's the same approach, just different colors. So give this a whirl, try it out, I think you'll enjoy it. Remember, don't let your brush clog and you'll be all set. Thanks for joining me. We'll catch you next time.